Welcome back to 3 Acorn Bourbon. Got a really good one for you today. Another barrel proof. We are going with Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. This bourbon is named after Elijah Craig, who's a Baptist minister known as the Father of Bourbon. And while he likely never owned his own distillery, Elijah Craig was a pioneer in the bourbon world. Elijah Craig was an interesting character historically, and played a large role in the spread of Baptist beliefs in Virginia. Born in 1745, Craig lived a pretty ordinary life until a religious awakening in the 1760s. Inspired by other Baptist preachers, he began holding his own religious services. Now, during this period, Virginia mandated Anglicanism as the official religion, and Craig's Baptist beliefs defied these laws, leading to his imprisonment on at least 2 occasions. And Craig's life exemplifies some of the struggles for religious freedom in early America. Craig emerged as a prominent leader in Baptist congregations, and was ordained as a minister in 1771. He even played a role advocating for religious freedom at the state legislature. What does this have to do with bourbon? Now, the exact connection between Elijah Craig the minister and Elijah Craig the bourbon production isn't exactly clear. The bourbon production seems to be honoring the minister as a pioneer for aging bourbon in charred oak barrels, but historical evidence for that's lacking. It's more likely Craig was just a distiller who was one of many distillers who picked up that technique around that time. I don't know, I mean, it's a cool history, but it just seems kind of bizarre. Now, Elijah Craig is owned by Heaven Hill Distillery. It's a family-owned distillery in Kentucky established in 1935. And while bourbon is their specialty, Elijah Craig also makes rye and a toasted barrel expression that undergoes additional aging in specially toasted barrels. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof has received numerous accolades, including winning Whiskey of the Year in 2017. Each batch of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof has widely ranging proof points. I think mine's 119 and the highest I saw was around 140. It's also a limited release bourbon with only 3 batches hitting the shelves annually. And that scarcity adds a desirability and collectability for bourbon enthusiasts. In 2021, Heaven Hill Distillery introduced another twist, single barrel expressions of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof whiskey, allowing for an even more individualized bourbon experience. This one is not single barrel. It's part of a batch, A124. Let's get into the tasting notes. Nice color on that. Let's start with the nose. It smells good, it smells nice. There's a lot of really deep, rich caramel, a lot of toasted oak, and a lot of fruit. A lot of orange, a little bit of apple. I mean, there's some vanilla, but for the most part, it's caramel and oak. Really well supported by these bright fruits. And it's rounded out by the cinnamon and the black pepper. The nose doesn't seem too complex, which isn't a bad thing. It has its aromas and it does them really nicely. All right, let's get into the palate. Man, that first sip was hot. Man, that is full body. It drinks hot. You're very aware you're drinking something barrel proof. It's got the classic bourbon flavors, vanilla, caramel, a little bit of butterscotch, kind of a buttery, oily mouthfeel. The orange is still there, the apple is still there. Plenty of cinnamon and black pepper on the palate as well. I get like a drying, very tannic oak flavor. It just strips moisture out of your mouth, and the high proof is doing the same thing. But it's still delicious. I mean, it's still very good. I just find this batch slightly out of balance, a little too oaky for me. Now, the finish is long-lasting, as you might expect. And I'm going to say the finish is really where this whiskey shines. The oak is still very present, but a lot of that tannic bitterness, like you're licking raw oak wood, is gone. It gives way to a really pleasant, salted leather. You still get some good brown sugar, a little bit of fruitiness, mostly like an orange zest. And then all of that fades into a nice sort of bitter dark chocolate. So a really good nose, pretty good palate. It's got a little bit of like the oak and barrel char without the good balance of a rare breed. It's really just sort of char. And then the finish is really nice. Well, that's all I wanted to cover today, guys. So on your way out, just remember, bourbon, it's made for sharing. So open your bottles, make some memories, and I'll catch you in the next one.